I wanted to start today's video talking about basically the most important resource that I've noticed a few people ask questions about, and that's the question of bottles, who you should use it on, how do you even get them, and why are we getting so many? Well, I'm not going to really question that last one, but let's get into it. First and foremost, if you aren't familiar with it already, the new Epic Dash event that we've been receiving or we've been participating in gives you a bunch of resources, and one of those resources that you get is a bottle. Now, if you aren't familiar with what this bottle is, it is a free imprint or a free copy of an artifact that you can use to upgrade its total potential level. And this is similar to other games, other gacha games that have imprints, they have constellations, mindscapes, whatever it is you want to call it. It's an extra copy of an artifact. Now, the reason why this is super important is because unlike something like gold, hunt materials, or anything else pretty much in the game, slates and specifically bottles, as I just mentioned, are very, very rare, and they aren't that common to get. Essentially, all you're basically able to get is one or two of these every so often, and it basically comes down to whenever the rotation or whenever certain rotations reset. For specifically bottle, it's available after 1 month, and it refreshes whenever the Powder of Knowledge shop list resets. And the same can be said for the conquest points. If I'm not mistaken, it's been a little minute. I know that they revamped Arena a little bit. There's a chance that they might have put the slate in the battle pass for this. I'm not entirely sure. Long story short, the point is that these are quite rare resources. And so with today's video, what I wanted to talk about is number one, what you should be thinking about when it comes to these really valuable resources, if I can ever find it in my inventory. Okay, I don't know where they are, but the point is, I want to, oh, there they are. Oh, hello. Okay, point is, I want to talk about this very valuable resource, what you should be thinking about when you go into or start using this artifact or using this consumable, and what you should actually be prioritizing when it comes to, I guess, upgrading your artifacts. Without further ado, let's get into it. So I've decided to make this handy dandy, not tier list looking thing, but technically looks like a tier list thing, in terms of the artifacts that I think are impactful or worth mentioning. At the bottom here, we have, again, artifacts I'll go into later, but the basic general principle when it comes to using bottle or the bottle to upgrade artifacts and increase their value is their effect, or what happens when you actually apply a bottle to these artifacts. The artifacts at the top have certain effects that include things that increase your chance for a buff to spawn, increase your chance for certain effects to happen, and things of that nature, and these are going to take the highest priority. Now, of course, to be clear, if you want to use your bottle for whatever reason, because you really want a character to look really special, this is not really a video for that specific purpose. You're more than happy to do whatever you'd like with it then. But these were some, this is a breakdown of the different value or different values that you get when you use bottle on certain artifacts. For a specific example, the collaboration artifact 3F, which is Albedo's artifact, if you're not familiar with it, basically increases your chance of applying an additional hit. And to cycle back to this menu really quickly, if you're interested in seeing what 3F does exactly, it says that after attacking, it has a 75% chance to deal additional damage to the target, and this damage increases proportional to the caster's max HP. Now, this is just one of the several examples that you're looking or taking a look at here, but I would imagine you could see the value in here. If you are dependent specifically on the damage or the proc or the chance of this effect happening, well, there's a good chance that bottling it is worth it, especially if you aren't someone that's whaling and just have already gotten the artifact for prior to this point. And so that's where I would say that specifically 3F, in particular, would be worth bottling. Now, again, the effect chance increase to 100% does not always mean that the artifact you're going to bottle is super, super important or even relevant anymore. And that's actually the case with Rengar's Drink, which is unfortunately kind of fallen off a cliff in terms of relevancy and in terms of value. Seaside Bellona, which is the hero that's specifically tied to this artifact, is also just not that popular anymore. She does a few things decently, including PvE, and in some cases for PvP, yes, of course. And as with pretty much every character and everything in any gacha game, if you invest and put enough time and love into a character, any character can work fine. That being said, specifically for this artifact, it's no longer on the highest priority list, which is why, despite all of these artifacts being in the same tier, their level of priority is not the same. However, in terms of making a list of bottle-worthy artifacts, making a tier list is quite difficult, and in my opinion, sometimes a bit scuffed, specifically because sometimes you won't have some of these artifacts. Rocket Punch is basically, Rocket Punch is an artifact that you'd only be able to get if you participated in the one run of Espa's collab, and if you don't have it, well, then it means nothing for you. And so therefore, it being high in a tier list is valuable, but you know, it's not relevant to you. So I'd rather introduce a couple of the artifacts or list out the artifacts here that do actually have value for you and that you can see great increases, or I guess just notify or be informed about which of the effect chances increase. So my suggestions, if you are someone that has any of these artifacts in the top, I think that Benimaru's Tachi, Star of the Deep Sea if you're someone that likes using Summertime Assyria or Pirate Captain Flan, or Sweet Miracle if you're one of the 8 quintillion players that likes playing Laia, are probably some of the best artifacts you can get up here at the top. If you are someone that has also gotten Karina, she's not quite as good, especially with the introduction of characters like Senya and ML Haste, but of course with some characters that's just how the cookie, you know, that's just how the cookie crumbles. You only have Karina, you don't have ML Haste, you don't have ML Senya. Well, guess what? Rocket Punch is probably your best artifact of choice because that's the only character that you have. Me telling you that Benimaru's Tachi is the best doesn't mean anything if you don't have him. That being said, I did mention Albedo's artifact, and this needs a little bit of context because 3F is Albedo's artifact, but it is actually an artifact usable on other characters as well. Most commonly and most popularly, Bellion right now, who definitely appreciates it if you can get 3F to maximum, but truth be told, it is more of an artifact for primarily PvP play, and otherwise, if you want something like Benimaru's Tachi, this has practical applications not just in PvP or for Guild War. Sometimes it also has value in certain situations in PvE. That being said, these are completely up to you. Just keep in mind that I think probably the artifact that a lot of people would want the most of to be 100% right now, if you're looking for a more generalized, overall well-rounded account, it's probably Sweet Miracle. Sweet Miracle is fantastic. It gives you HP, and Laia is one of the best characters in the game right now, and it allows you to cleanse. Also, it's usable on characters like Emilshu if you're running her on ER and memes, stuff like that. So fine, also Conqueror Lilies. Now the next list is, or the next category that we have here is the increase effect chance artifacts that do increase the chance that they have their effect to, or rather, bottling these artifacts will increase the effect chance of these special artifacts effects, I guess, or the chance for these artifacts passives to activate increases when you bottle these artifacts. However, in a really straightforward and much less convoluted way, these are not that impactful simply because they don't put you to 100%. Now, all of us are gambling men, women, whatever you want to call ourselves, addicts, since we are playing a gacha game. But the truth is here is that although some of these, including Guiding Light, will get you up to something like 70%, you could cope and technically say that, well, either it procs or it doesn't, especially because you aren't someone that can, or these artifacts aren't things that can get up to 100%. Just going from 50 to 70 is impactful, but you still have a 30% chance to miss. You know what I mean? So in that case and in that sense, it doesn't really make too much sense, but we need some more context here as well because there are artifacts that are a bit more important or relevant to talk about here. The specific one I want to address here is Ignition Cloth Glove, because although this does increase the effect chance of something, specifically hit chance, and I'll bring it up in a second on my epicseven, where is Roy's artifact? This is not the same effect chance as the other artifacts. Now, as you can tell, this isn't an increased chance for Roy to get an attack buff or something. It's an increased hit chance by a certain amount. Now, to be honest, it's just kind of hard in general to categorize or find the exact labeling that would put each of these artifacts into its own perfect category. But Ignition Cloth Glove specifically is important, in my opinion, because if you do increase the effect chance here, and I'd almost argue it's worth putting this into this top row here, getting this Ignition Cloth Glove here up to 20%, paired alongside certain characters, actually removes your chance of being evaded by certain characters. For Roy specifically, if you're fighting someone against, or I guess I should start with all mages in general, if you have any ignition cloth glove on, you remove your chance of being evaded by certain artifacts or certain heroes that have artifacts like Moonlight Dreamblade, or any evasion artifact in general that gives you 20% evasion. It's pretty much all of them, actually, and outside of, again, another character having a passive built into their kit, like Aiden's S2 passive that gives her evasion, or Remnant Violets, which does the same. Ignition Cloth Glove, when maxed, actually gives you a 100% chance of hitting these evasion characters, which is why, technically speaking, it also deserves to be in the effect hit chance thing, but it's not technically the same, because it's, of course, 20% and this is 100. That being said, just one of the more important distinctions here. Now, from this category, if you are someone that has already gotten all the artifacts that you want to, I guess, max to 100% chance for the effects to, basically for the effects to occur, we can start talking about the second category, because these are a bit more luxurious. If you have one copy of Guiding Light, Miss Confile, Upgraded Knuckle, which is not, you know, these two artifacts aren't even really that used, you could argue that something like Guiding Light and getting it to 70% is impactful, not only because upgrading an artifact gives you base stats, but also having two chances of a 70% artifact proccing are, or in general, is always going to be better than having an artifact have a 50-50 chance of it proccing. And since 50% and then 50% is not the same as 50 plus 50% chance of something happening, having your chances be higher is always better. That being said, in terms of this category, there really aren't that many great options, and this is just specifically talking about the limiteds and collabs. I should probably mention that here. Oopsies. Anyways, furthermore, we have the next category, and although Guiding Light is basically the only artifact from this category that's pretty much worth upgrading here, there are other limited or collaborative artifacts that are worth addressing and mentioning because they do something special. Now, we just talked about Ignition Cloth Glove and how you technically gain an increased chance to apply hit chance. Well, technically, this detective gadget does something similar. Now, most of you guys might not even be familiar with what this artifact does, and to be honest, I almost forgot that I even had it, but what this artifact does, it reads that after using non-attack skill, you increase the combat readiness of the caster by 15%, and you remove, at max, 20 souls as opposed to 15 or 10 souls when using this ability. Now, you might be wondering why this is here, but if you are someone that has ever encountered this artifact and you're playing Cleave, removing all souls, a full 20 souls, or a full book's worth of souls from a character is very impactful. And in some cases, if all you remove is 10 souls and you're using or playing a character like Sid, well, sorry, buddy, you're actually still allowing someone like Sid to soul burn and use his abilities. Now, using this at a lower level is still impactful, but in my eyes, it still felt notable enough for me to kind of mention it, since it feels similar to something like Ignition Cloth Glove, and you're not technically getting the full effect if you don't get it maxed, but I digress. Another really similar feeling artifact to these is actually Seductive Flower and Azure Comet, which both give you stats, which is okay, very good. Seductive Flower giving you effectiveness and Azure Comet giving you crit chance, but both of these also have a combat readiness manipulation kind of aspect to it, which can also feel impactful or important if you're speed tuning or setting things up specifically for a character, which is why also worth, I included them in the worth mention category, but these are very specific and niche artifacts if you're just trying to make one character or one specific playstyle or strategy work. The other two artifacts here are what I actually consider to be some of the better artifacts and more worthwhile artifacts mentioning in general. Actually, I forgot to include this artifact here, and this is talking about the more stat-focused meta artifacts. The first that we have is Soul Constellation, which is Ocean Breeze Luluka's artifact, and this not only provides you with a combat readiness push, which is similar to some of these other artifacts over here, it also gives you a boatload of effect resistance. Now, I'm not talking about like a minor amount either. This thing ends up giving you, if I'm not mistaken, roughly 50. It gives you 30 at plus 15, which is already bonkers enough. And I know at max, this combat readiness increases to 16, which is also impactful because if you guys have taken a look at Arena right now, the only thing stopping Luna is Infinite Horizon Acades and Lulukar's artifact. Despite that being the case, we do have to also talk about the other artifacts here, which are what basically share the same value from Soul Constellation in terms of just giving stat. An artifact like Prayer of Solitude was formerly very popular, but because it gave HP percent, and it's definitely fallen off more, and players have definitely kind of begun going back and forth between is it even worth it to have Prayer of Solitude if I could just have Sweet Miracle, and vice versa. But Sweet Miracle is an artifact that hasn't rerun recently yet, and outside of bottling another Sweet Miracle, it's actually kind of hard to get multiple of these. And well, Lethe recently, or more recently, had a rerun of this artifact, which is why it is technically something worth mentioning. But the real, probably like most impactful artifact that especially some of you slower players or Ice Soul Weaver, or not Ice, but Soul Weaver and tank players would enjoy and probably have bottled already, even if you haven't watched this video, is Guardian Ice Crystal. This artifact is hands down one of the most impactful artifacts in the game, especially from a PvP aspect, specifically because of how much value it gives. It gives you a technically not on your turn heal, and also provides you with a decent amount of effective resistance. And truth be told, if you ask any slow player how many of this artifact they have, the answer is probably 2, 3, maybe even 4. Again, when you are already gaining effective resistance and you also increase the amount that you heal, and then these two artifacts technically don't have a cooldown on each other, so if you put 2 of them together, you get an insane massive heal. It's pretty clear and obvious why this artifact is so massive and so important to take a look at. Now, the artifacts that I haven't mentioned here, including things like Pipette Lance, Hostess of the Banquet, these are not necessarily bad artifacts, but in terms of priority, getting 1 copy of them is okay. And unless if you are like a significant Bloodblade Karen lover and you must have this artifact on her, Hostess of the Banquet and even Pipette Lance for a character like shoot, I can't remember, but the person whose artifact this is, why can't, okay, this feels really stupid. Hold on, let me, what is her name? This feels really dumb. Pipette Lance is for, hold on, I'm getting it. I'm running to the character. Shaltier, that's who it is, Shaltier. Pipette Lance and Hostess of the Banquet is honestly not that impactful. Having an artifact or is not that impactful in terms of value for your bottle. Yeah, you get additional stat, and yeah, you get a little bit more stat in general. But unlike some of these other artifacts, which I think are more generally usable and more, you know, widely regarded because of their effect or their specific passive effect, additional damage from Hostess of the Banquet is nice, but let's be real, guys. Like, Bloodblade Karen is probably one-shotting you anyways. And then even for Pipette Lance, the damage increase from someone like Shaltier is impactful, but she's killing that she's killing the aiding, guys. Don't worry. In any case, those were just my thoughts about the different artifacts, and I have seen a lot of people kind of swing around their bottles and use it kind of like it's, I don't know, like a toy, but I think it's actually kind of impactful to keep these artifacts specifically in mind. And although there are other artifacts amongst the 5 stars and RGBs or non-limiteds or non-collabs that you could always invest in and use bottles on too, these felt like some of the most important to get out and mention to you guys first because, well, they're collabs, they're limiteds, and we don't know when some of these are coming back. In any case, as a kind of rundown or kind of a summarization of total or of this whole list, I do generally believe that running or using the bottle on limited or collab characters is always going to be your best bet. There's great value, of course, to having an artifact of 100%, regardless if they're collaborative or limited. But since these have such restrictive conditions to pull or even find them outside of buying a pack or literally forcing a banner to happen, these are definitely going to be the most priority. And in case you were curious, if it were me and I had 1 of every single copy, maxing Sweet Miracles, followed by probably maxing Guiding Light, then followed by probably maxing something like Soul Constellation or Guardian Ice Crystal, would probably be my 1 from each category prioritization. Although, again, seriously, guys, focusing on this top of the list section is really, really important. Anyways, though, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks again for watching. I hope you guys learned something. I know this was more of a straightforward, or not straightforward, more of a in a line kind of rambling sort of video. But yeah, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Hope this gave some clarification for those of you guys that aren't sure about where to use the artifacts in the game right now. And yeah, or the bottles in the game right now. And yeah, this is what I think will help the most. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure to check out the rest of my socials, my other channel. And yeah, you guys have been lovely and really supportive. So thanks again. I'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye.